Today's Ringer NBA show is brought to you by Microsoft Surface. Thank you, Microsoft Surface, for being a sponsor of the show. Need a device that helps you get stuff done, but is also perfect when you want to catch up on some fun, like streaming live sports or checking on your fantasy team? Check out the latest member of the Microsoft Surface family, the new Surface Pro 6. Just take the keyboard off and use it like a tablet, or snap it back on and use it like a laptop with up to 13 and a half hours of battery life and the new 8th gen Intel Core processor. It's everything you love about the Surface Pro, now even more powerful. Today's episode of the Ringer NBA show is brought to you by BetQL. You want an edge over Vegas? Download BetQL, the app you need to get an advantage this season. Discover value bets, line movement, and find out what bets the public backs with BetQL. And the best part, BetQL is free to download from your mobile device. Head to betql.co and use promo code NBA for your 3-day trial. Give yourself an advantage over Vegas and download BetQL. That's betql.co and promo code NBA.
Basketball is very good. Anthony Davis will win the MVP this year. The Hawks trading Doncic was a smart move. What if the Cavs are better without LeBron? Basketball is very good.
Hello and welcome to the Ringer NBA show. It's group chat.
Bow, bow, bow.
Paolo, Shaughnessy, Paolo, Uggetti, Chris Ryan. Justin Verrier is in transit. We'll see if he makes it here. Justin's just... He's
DNP.
An editor at the core, but we're going to miss him on this pod. Hopefully he'll come in and drop some UConn alumnus takes later.
How many people could he be?
I mean, plenty. Andre Drummond, Jeremy Lamb, Kemba Walker.
More than USC, that's for sure.
Ooh. Is there a lot? Do you think there's better Louisville players in the league right now than UConn players?
We're top heavy. Donovan Mitchell.
Top heavy.
Donovan Mitchell
and who else?
Montrezl Harrell.
Uh-huh.
I don't know about top heavy.
Yeah, actually. Well, I mean, I meant top heavies than Donovan.
Justin,
if you were playing
Gorgie
2-on-2,
Jang.
would you rather have Kemba and Drummond or Harrell and Mitchell? If you were playing like NBA Jam and the Earth's future depended on it.
I would rather have Donovan and anyone.
Wow, that's what a surprising answer. Today we're going to talk a little bit about opening night heroes. The NBA started for sure last night. We had opening night with Sixers Celtics. I'm sure you guys feel inundated with Sixers and Celtics takes from the Ringer. But I do have some more to share.
I'm drowning in it. It's like I can't tell what's real and what's fake.
Yeah, because it's like, are they the only two pro franchises that matter?
You could tell me anything and I would think that you were serious.
No, I know. Well, we'll find out. But I want to talk about some other teams. And I want to start with, in the creeping NFLification of the NBA, where like every night is the most important thing that's ever happened. And anything that happens is like everything that's going to happen forever. I guess Anthony Davis won the MVP last night.
That's deep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 100%. The campaign started.
So the Rockets went out. They're supposed to win 50-something games this year. They're going to go back to the Western Conference Final. They're going to get the revenge on the Warriors. But first they laid an egg against the Pelicans, losing 131-112, and it wasn't that close, I don't think.
I think that this and the whole Davis, like how much you buy into his performance, not as him being great, but as it being his MVP season, you getting extra hype about it. I think that it depends on which way you look at it, because the Rockets were not good last night.
No.
And so you could either overreact and say that they are taking a massive step back, or you could...
Or when it comes to Carmelo, taking a step forward past the three-point line for a long 2-footer.
29-footer!
2-pointer, yeah.
Or a 19-footer, yeah. I'm probably a 29-footer. He might have a better chance.
Well, because for me, I like confirming my own beliefs. All offseason, I thought that the Rockets had taken a small step back. And for one game, I can be correct, because they looked pretty bad. And not just that, not to turn it back to the people around Davis, but it was also encouraging to see how good the Pelicans were, just top to bottom.
Yep.
And, I'm sure we'll get into Elfrid Payton's triple-double.
I mean, everybody in America is waiting for us to get to Elfrid Payton right now. It's not like there's anybody else of interest in this game.
But
Did anyone else have a better or more dramatic hair change?
Josh Jackson also had one. He is now buzz cut, and he had long hair before. There you go.
I think that Payton's is better.
Oh, of course, but I'm just saying if we want to compete. One of the questions going into the season was how would he fill in that Rondo role, right? And I mean, he fit it pretty damn well in the game one by literally doing what Rondo does all the time, which is have these weird 10 and 10 10 triple doubles. And, Mirotic looked good. He had 30 points last night. I don't know. I'm really in on this team.
This is a team that's probably going to be very, it's going to be very volatile to if injuries happen. I don't think it's that deep, but when you watch it, what's so cool about it is that, we're so used to these super teams being built, and it's like, we bring this guy and we bring this guy in. There's constant change. We're always tinkering with the rotation. This is just they have the best player in the NBA, possibly, and they put some guys around him, and it really worked. And he's agreed to play the 5 because playing the 5 in Alvin Gentry's system is not the same as playing the 5 in almost any other system. He's essentially playing a 3-4 hybrid on offense that's crashing the rim. He's a monster defensively. And I think it's going to take a really long time for anybody to figure out how you guard this team. They're playing so fast. They have shooting all over the floor with the exception of Alfred, but they've got Anthony is the X factor that no one can really game plan for.
Well, in terms of that being a revelation that this Pelicans team is so interesting because they put a bunch of random guys around AD. That's been every Pelicans team since AD.
Yeah.
And I think that this year, the interesting person who's going to be the Mirotic other than him is Randall. I was kind of impressed by, and maybe that's something that we'll see dip back down. But I always liked Randall in LA. I think he kind of had a tough go of it because it seemed like he was always the guy they were ready to trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like him. I think that he can be exactly what they need him to be. And he's more consistent than people might give him.
He's really fascinating in this system because you don't really think of him as a pace kind of guy.
Yeah, he's more of a
a bruiser.
Yeah, and I think also likes to have the ball in his hands a little bit and see the floor a little bit more and not. I think Alvin Gentry's offense relies on sort of quick decisions and a lot of movement, just and a ferocious kind of momentum towards the basket.
But I think much in the same way we talk about the Lakers running and trying to play fast, which we'll see Thursday night. I wonder how fast they can go and for how long they can go fast this season before things, like you said, injuries start popping up or just exhaustion.
Right, because the lineups can get really bizarre really fast.
Yes.
If, let's say that they have to start Davis, Mirotic, and Randall. That's weird. That's a mess.
I think Dan had it best on Twitter where he said, Dan Devine, he said, you probably can't play the 3 of them together, but any combination of the 2 is going to be really good.
Is going to be effective.
Yeah.
Haley, you wrote a little bit about the MVP expectations that are kind of enveloping Davis this season. And it's interestingly enough for a guy who I think before he joined the Clutch Sports Agency seemed to be a little bit more not self-effacing, but just kind of I'm just going about my business. He seems completely aware of the narrative surrounding him. And he
oh my God,
a little
totally.
bit. Yeah.
What I wrote was that it's a presidential campaign, a couple years before,
he's running.
Yeah.
It's
seriously, he's a 4-term senator with a connection to the Kennedys.
Well,
he seriously, in the interview he did before the season started, he said, I saw what Russ Westbrook did when Durant went down with that foot injury. And he told Alvin Gentry that's what he has to be. Quote, if I have to be Westbrook, I will be Westbrook. He might have been talking about 2014-15 Westbrook, but dude, you're talking about 2016.
And then last night he said that he took a look at James Harden's MVP award.
And then he plays the former MVP. That's great for thank you NBA for setting that up for him. And he destroys him.
So on the nose.
And then also in that article he brought up LeBron. He said when you look at LeBron every year, he's going to be great. His team's going to have a chance to win the title. From here on out, I want to be in that conversation every year. That is ambitious.
Yes.
Right.
And when you think about it, you can't say that about any other player in the league right now because the second best player in the league for some people, the first best player is Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
No. That's not his team might be in the conversation every year, but he's not carrying a team the same way LeBron can.
That would be that's the most interesting idea about Kevin Durant leaving Golden State is that if he goes to the Knicks or if he goes to the Heat or if he goes wherever he's going to go, it would be fascinating to see him try to lift a franchise up to 50 wins.
But that's not the assumption already is that Kyrie would go with him. He'd go somewhere where somebody else would be. It's just not. Right. We just don't. Free agents don't go somewhere where no one else is anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, but yeah, I think that the LeBron thing is very interesting because after those last 33 games, I don't think Davis will ever be there, but it's interesting to think about him as another player who makes a stand this year is any year that I'm on this team.
It's a 50-win season. We're
It's
going to the playoffs.
a 50-win season,
and you never know what can happen.
It's so interesting how not just the narrative kind of is building up to this, but everything is in the way we think about the NBA now, where it's like, who's the next free agent? Who's the next guy that's going to be available for teams to go after? Who might, exert their pre-agency, if you will. And he's that next guy. So like, it feels like everything is sort of, I don't know, coalescing around him in a way where like he's now the guy we're going to pay attention to the whole season, because like, okay, Kawhi's in Toronto, Paul George stayed in Oklahoma City, LeBron's in LA. So who's the next guy? And he's only 25, which is crazy to think about.
I know, it's so easy to forget that he's 25. But I also think that part of his whole MVP campaign is kind of like giving that same feeling that Westbrook gave the people, is like, okay, Durant left, but don't worry, guys. Like, I'm here. I'm putting this whole team on my back.
Small market team. Has been speculation that the Pelicans are not long for this world if Davis were to leave. He is essentially the franchise savior, whether he likes it or not. And he could be the end of the franchise if he leaves, which I'm sure is not a very pleasant thing to contemplate. I think that we get to a certain point where these numbers, like we'll look at Karl Anthony Towns' numbers, we'll look at Giannis' numbers, we'll look at whoever's,
I honestly,
Simmons.
I don't even think we should talk about Cat in that.
That's what I'm saying, is that Davis is now beyond the kids with good numbers zone.
And he's floating in between the LeBron, KD.
LeBron, KD, Harden, Curry. Agreed. He is up in that group where you're like, I take him and 4 guys off the street, and I think you could beat most NBA teams. And you saw it. He beat what was probably the story of the season last year was the Rockets. It's not a big deal. They're still getting used to each other. They got rid of some guys. They're bringing some new guys in. We're not freaking out about the Rockets. It's more about watching Anthony Davis out there and just be like, I'm the best player on the floor.
Right.
I'm the best player on the floor. This is how, and honestly, like I thought that was like, we'll get to this, but there's a couple of games I've seen over the last 2 days where there was some really interesting statement games. Statement game from Tatum. For a while there during the Celtics game, you were like, I felt like Simmons was like, you guys aren't talking about me enough.
Yes.
I'm the best player on the floor. We'll talk more about that.
We're going to talk more about Sixers Celtics?
At some point. Let's talk a little bit about the Suns, who played the late national game. God bless the NBA.
This is
it was DeAndre versus Doncic, but it wound up being, I thought, a statement game for Devin Booker, actually.
Oh, Devin Booker.
Because Devin Booker is another numbers guy, another guy that you get really seduced, that you see a tweet at like 10 p.m. and it's a basketball reference thing. It's like, no one's ever scored like with their, right foot perpendicular
on
to the
a
left
Tuesday.
foot.
Great
on a Tuesday.
basketball reference voice.
No, but it was just you would see these numbers and you'd be like, yeah, but the Suns suck. So who cares? And then one thing that I really noticed about last night, Devin Booker ended with 35. 19 came in the fourth quarter.
Right.
That's
4 for 4 from 3.
That's when you graduate. Well, that's when you graduate and you're like, I know how to win a game for my team. That's
similar
huge.
to the leap we were just talking about with Davis. The one for Booker this season is that his stats are no longer can be called empty.
Right.
And the way that happens is if the Suns win more games. And they're actually in a better position to do that this year with some of the vets they brought in. And it looks like, I'm super in on Ayton, but it looks like he can immediately help that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the system, too. I think it's interesting to note that they have a new coach, in Igor, and they had 35 assists last night.
Yes.
And I think it's the first time they've had a game with 35 assists since 2011. So if Booker takes that extra step, if the system caters to him in this kind of fashion and they're more spacing and passing, and Ayton is what we all think Ayton is going to be, then maybe they'll get
right.
Into
If the ball goes around more, then also it's harder to say that a guy has empty stats.
Yes.
Yeah. But you could see Booker absorbing contact and finishing. You could see Booker making the right pass when the shot wasn't there. You could see him playing within a system that seemed to make more sense and cater to his skill set. And I couldn't help but feel, Carrie Bradshaw. I couldn't help but wonder
across town.
This was what the Wolves were supposed to be. I was watching.
I was thinking that because I was
watching Jamal Crawford and Tyson Chandler on the bench.
Coaching them.
And Ariza out there on the floor, and Ariza kind of giving them like a level of stability. Yep. And Josh Jackson playing his ass off. He ended with 18. TJ Warren looked really effective when they needed like a bucket that wasn't necessarily the most efficient thing you've ever seen, but was like, hey, it's 4 seconds left on the shot clock. We need you to just absorb contact and make a 10-footer. And of course, Ayton ends his first game as an NBA player with 18, 10, and 6, which is about all you can ask for a guy.
I think Anna's stealing a block, right?
Shouts to Ryan McDonough.
Yeah, and there was a lot of like, I think there was some Twitter critiques of like his defensive recognition.
Yeah.
But guys sometimes don't realize how to play defense for 3 years, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Well, that's the whole thing. I think that people are like hesitant to say that anymore because Cat has backfired when we're giving people that leash. But
But this was the Wolves. This was what the Wolves were supposed to be.
Right.
Good new coach, veteran leadership to back up and to show the way to these two number one draft picks. Yeah.
I think that with Ayton's defense, it looks a little bit. Well, first of all, I thought that he looked tired on some of, which is like, okay, you're a rookie. But also, I think that a lot of times with the big guys, they kind of get confused about timing because probably, I would say more than any other position, the talent level and like what you have to go up against is such a huge jump from college to the pros in, under the basket because you are getting bullied by these guys. And so I think that a lot of it is timing. It's like, when do I trust my teammate to take this guy and I'm going to switch on to someone else?
Yeah.
Because there are so many more threats than when you were in college.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. He goes from being the bully in college to being the bully in the NBA real fast. But I think overall, like, I mean, if we want to start nitpicking rookies, like, we can do that with like all of them. So I think, I mean, it's such a weird...
It's a compliment that we're taking.
Yeah, I guess that we're taking a closer look with him.
There was there was a second last night where I was watching. It was Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton. Ayton had just come out of a game, and Jamal Crawford was sitting there in wearing a suit because he wasn't ready for action yet.
He looked like a coach. When I saw him in the suit, I was like,
he was coaching. He was talking to those guys, and he was just like this, and Ayton was like had this look on his face that wasn't like I'm over. It was more like teach me. He was like, this is a lot of like reading into body language, but he seemed genuine. Like they were obviously talking about him. He got an elbowed, and like there was something like where they were discussing like this is why this play went wrong, and Bridges looked really engaged. It just seems like that's the ideal situation for a young kid to come up in.
And he said after the game, Ayton said that was the most fun I've had during a basketball game. And it kind of made me think about, this is really overreacting, but it made me think about like the issue I always thought the Wolves had was that they were never used to winning.
Yeah.
And so like when you get used to winning kind of off the bat or even getting used to being competitive, you go down such a different path as a rookie.
It's a different mentality.
On the level, and on the level that you bring to games. And so that is an overreaction to game one, but that also like that's something to be excited about.
To the point about the veterans and the young guys mixing in together, it's interesting because I feel like there's a handful of these teams who have tried that and it hasn't gone particularly well. I mean,
the Kings come to mind.
Yeah, the Kings come to mind with Randolph and George Hill and Vince Carter. Right. And now the Hawks are kind of trying to do that with Vince as a player on while they have Trae Young. So it does seem like this is like the absolutely ideal scenario.
Another team that I was really, really impressed by last night, obviously they were sort of the big ticket of the early slate of games was the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Bucks!
I think everybody, they're kind of the hipster darlings. They have been over the last couple of years, but now that Bud's there, I think we're finally going to get an unlocked version of this team. A team that averaged, I think they were like 27th in three-point attempts last year. They averaged 24 a game. They shot 34 in their first game with Bud against the Hornets. A game which they were leading for most of, but they got tight later in the afternoon or the evening. But Giannis 25, 18, and 8. Incredible, solid bedrock of support from Middleton and Bledsoe. Exactly how you draw it up if you're looking at how this game is supposed to go. And it looked like a completely different basketball team when you were watching them. Fast, extra pass, always looking for the wide open guy to take a three-pointer. It was
and a wide open guy.
It was Bud ball.
Yeah. Right. The Bucks to me are like the startup 3 years in, where they've had the backlash. Things have gone wrong, but they've been exciting.
Yeah.
And now they're like taking some resposability.
Yeah.
And now it's time to start trying to be a real company.
Yeah,
exactly. And like the things that you were just talking about on offense were incredible. And I don't think it's an overreaction to be at least excited about the prospect of change because of the sheer number of threes that they took. And although they also shot them better than last year, that kind of wavers. I'm sure that'll dip a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you had like Middleton off the dribble. You had Eric Bledsoe in transition. You had Brogdon's little weird shot. It was great. I mean, and people were open and they were getting the extra pass, and often that extra pass went to Giannis inside, which is like exactly what he needs to be doing.
And Ersan Ilyasova is just going to take like the 13 points a game he had against the Sixers and just translate that because he's just there taking threes. Like I think he's going to be a really useful player. I think, it's interesting. We spent the first section of the pod gushing about Davis and his MVP narrative, but I think Giannis is going to give him a run for his money. That's kind of how I feel about this, because it's a similar way in that both teams should, at least on paper, have these like leaps, these bits of improvement. And if say the Bucks end up with the 3 seed or the 2 seed even in the East, like what's this? I think the numbers are going to be somewhat similar. So I think Giannis is going to be the one. If anybody, if we're kind of getting on the train of AD's MVP season, I think Giannis.
They got to win more than 50 games.
Right,
I mean, it's like let's
yeah.
not even get into the MVP stuff because I know that we're almost using MVP as like a bookmark for like really good season.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like making a leap, whatever you want to call it.
I think the race is just pretty open.
Sure,
So
I think that's why we're talking about it so much. Is it doesn't feel like this is one of the Warriors, Harden or LeBron.
The difference
there is some competition for it.
The difference between AD and Giannis is that AD has to show that he can do the 33 game stretch over an entire season to make these Pelicans a different team. Whereas Giannis is like the Bucks have to finally give him what he needs. And so that's going to be the difference about like where these two...
I think it's actually a little bit of both ways for Giannis.
It is, but I think that
there
also...
is an X factor of Giannis that you want, like, this is what AD
well, yeah, I
is
mean, he
doing.
went 0 from 3 last night from the 3. But so he does need to like level out his game. I see that, but I think that that's not going to happen until the Bucks are better.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, this is the Kevin Love conversation that we had for most of the early 2010s until he got traded to Cleveland, which was like, what do you do with a guy who can put up 40 and 20 and his team can't make the playoffs? What does that mean? You know what I mean? What is it? What is it wrong with Kevin? What's wrong with the Timberwolves that they can't accurately build around him? How come the coaching staff hasn't figured out a system to maximize his talent? That's why you get rid of, like, the Bucks were a 6, 7, 8 seed with Kidd, but what they're looking to be is a top 2 or 3 seed. And that's what Bud's going to bring in here is this, let's maximize every other piece around him so that he gets even better. But there is still a question of like, is Giannis able to like understand what's going on and seize that moment?
That's the great. I mean,
that's why you would watch them on
that's
any
the
given
question
night.
you want to be able to ask,
Right.
because then we can see exactly where he can be. He's not stinted by
full
anything
slate
else.
yesterday, and I was like Bucks Hornets. It's not even a question. It's not even a question of what I want to watch.
How about that Nick Batum?
The other reason why I watch Bucks Hornets, I knew it. I don't think anybody else believed in me.
Are you about to monk it?
Haley, my monk stock hit.
Oh, finally!
I bought
Thank
a boat
God.
with it.
Better cash out.
We overreact so much to like these small sample sizes with young players. If they don't like light the world on fire in their rookie season, they're complete garbage. They're washed. Get them out of the league. They should be playing for the Vipers.
Yeah, but he had like a really rough rookie season.
Well, look, I mean, if you thought you were going to live in New York and you had to move to Charlotte, you might be a little bit annoyed too. Okay.
Tough.
He looked great last night.
Yeah, 18 points.
He did.
4 threes. 7 of 16 from the field.
man who I thought the
go.
Sixers should draft at 3 before they traded 3 for 1 and drafted Fultz instead of Tatum made me look really smart last night.
You know what is so
should
sad
lean into
though
the
is
Hornets
that
fandom.
he looked great. Kemba had 41.
Kemba had 41, yeah.
And still, it's
They'll be
like
fine.
the Hornets are the Hornets.
Look,
I think
they're
they'll be
going to be
fine.
the 7th seed, 8th seed. You know, they're
yeah,
fine.
and that'd be great. And then they'll lose in the first round.
That's good enough for the Hornets.
No, it shouldn't be good enough for the Hornets.
Okay.
What else did you guys see last night that you want to talk about? You want to talk about Tim Hardaway Jr.?
Well, the Magic. Can we talk about the Magic?
Sure.
They beat the Heat. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's not like
We're hitting every quadrant.
Why not? Why not? I mean, Mo Bamba looked great, and you know the Magic for all their
good day
point
for
guard troubles.
rookie debuts.
Yeah, it was a pretty solid. Like
Was
nobody.
there a bad rookie debut?
I mean, Trae Young didn't have the best.
Okay, let's talk about
performance.
Trae Young because we can say it on air and then be held to this.
Sure.
So, what do you guys think is going to happen this season for
Well, so
young Trae?
he had a few moments where he made passes that you wish his teammates were just like a little bit better because like he has a good passing vision and he has that skill. But I mean, look at the team he has around him, you know, and that's the team as a whole. They just don't really have anybody like Vince Carter starting for this team. You know?
I'm not comparing him to Lonzo Ball, but I'm just saying that I think that his defenders are gonna sound a lot like the Lonzo Truthers last year. Where it's like, no, it's not his fault. Like
Trae
he's
Young
shooting
defenders?
25%.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
from
almost
three.
the amount of exposure Trae is going to get and the amount of game time he's going to get is going to inoculate him from any kind of real criticism
also,
in some ways.
You get held to such a high standard when people think that you were drafted too high.
Well, I mean, look, for the first season, I can tell you from experience, because if you're part of a draft day trade, your entire season is going to be shot through the lens of that trade.
Mhm.
So Trae Young will be just as good or just as bad as Luka Doncic is good or bad.
What?
Trae Young and Luka Doncic.
You think they're going to have the same season?
No, I think that their seasons are intertwined because they were traded for one another. So every time Luka puts up a triple-double and throws a no-look cross-court pass, people are going to be like, that dude could have saved Atlanta basketball. And if Trae Young is good, they're going to be like, great, you got Trae Young and an extra draft pick from a bad Mavericks team.
With Doncic, isn't it? This is what I thought when I was watching him last night. And I don't know if this is going to make sense.
Great.
It's been a great pop for me. I felt like I already saw him as a veteran and like what his floor could be. Does that make sense? Sometimes when we look back at these players and we're like, oh, we thought that they were going to be better when they hit the draft, but like they're fine, they're good players. I'm not saying he's going to be that, but I already saw last night, like he already has that in the bag.
Oh, yeah.
That's his absolute floor, and that is really great.
Well, that's his like EuroLeague like game too. Like when, watching him playing in Europe, that was like, okay, like that's his floor, and
he has
pretty damn good floor.
Something that EuroLeague stuff. I think the experience that he has playing in those kinds of competitions, he was trying to cook dudes on the Suns.
Right.
Like last night, I was like, yo, man, you were not nervous at all. You're just trying to like
the confidence,
take Ariza off the dribble.
Yeah, and it's nice to see him have like that immediate court vision connection with his teammates too.
Mm-hmm.
Like DAJ, that's gonna be fun. I think he had like 4 turnovers. But I'm not reading into it. I'm not.
Let him turn it over. Let Luka chef it up. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back to talk a little bit about Sixers Celtics, the Sixers and the Celtics, just generally, and some stuff that we're looking forward to. Today's episode of the Ringer NBA Show is brought to you by Google Pixel. Unleash the most powerful Pixel ever on the network, chosen by Google, Verizon. Pixel 3 has more than just any camera. It takes group selfies, snaps in portrait mode, and helps you always pick the perfect moment with Top Shot, which automatically recommends the best pics where no one is blinking and everyone looks just right. And Pixel 3 has the power of Google Lens, which means you can search what you see. And when you get the Pixel 3 on Verizon, it comes with America's best network. Now families can mix and match their unlimited plans on the best network. With unlimited on Verizon, everybody in the family gets what they want without paying for things that they don't. Visit your local Verizon store or learn more at vzw.com. Today's episode of the Ringer NBA Show is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. Navy Federal has a mission to put members first by making their financial goals the priority. Navy Federal Credit Union is proud to serve no matter when you served or where life takes you. Receive a lifetime of membership benefits to help you and your family accomplish life missions, like a full suite of financial products designed to fit your needs, 24/7 live support, and access to over 300 branches on or near military bases and thousands of fee-free ATMs. Easily access your accounts, transfer money, pay bills, and deposit checks with the Navy Federal mobile app. Navy Federal is open to the Armed Forces, DoD, veterans, and their family members, and they're proud to serve over 8 million members, including over 1 million veterans and their families. Navy Federal Credit Union, our members are the mission. Visit NavyFederal.org for more information. Call 1-888-842-6328 or download the Navy Federal Credit Union app. That's NavyFederal.org. For more information, call 1-888-842-6328. Message and data rates apply. Navy Federal is federally insured by NCUA. Ringer NBA Show group chat is back. Justin Verrier has joined us for the second half.
Hi, friends.
You're kind of the JJ Redick. We start you the second half.
That's great, yeah.
I want to run through some of our earlier takes and just see if there's any JV wisdom you want to impart on us.
Okay. You want to talk about the Clippers?
Anthony Davis MVP?
Probably.
Okay. DeAndre Ayton and the Suns are what the Wolves wish they were?
Oh, that's really interesting. No, I don't believe in Ayton as much as most people do.
There you go.
Nice.
Do you want to buy a summer home with me with all the money that just got deposited in my account from my Malik Monk stock?
Where are we going? Are we talking about like the Hamptons or Cape Cod?
You're more of like a rustic New Englander.
Yeah. We can go to Cape Cod.
Let's get
Lake Michigan spot.
Why would we go to Lake Michigan?
Because my friend just had a wedding there. It was really pretty.
Okay.
Oh,
wow.
All right.
So we can have our nuptials.
What else did you see from last night, Justin, that you wanted to talk about? Because I was wondering, what did you wind up watching?
So I was at the Clippers-Nuggets game, so I was
a little live
distracted.
basketball.
I know, believe it or not. I did catch most of the Pelicans game. I thought, obviously, that was super interesting. I do wonder, I think they only played 8 guys in that game. So, we'll see if they can keep up that pace and that sort of demand, especially with Anthony Davis playing center most of the time. But from the game I saw in person, I thought the Nuggets have a little bit more to them. I'm a little bit worried about Paul Millsap.
Were you skeptical? Because there was some, Nuggets are the 3 seed talk in our office coming into this season. I was just like, chill out a little bit, you know?
I've never been to that extent. I think they're a really good offensive team. I don't necessarily see where the defense is going to come from, like elite level defense that you need to play to have an impact in the playoffs with Jokic in there.
How much do you think that Paul Millsap for a whole season changes that?
See, that's the thing. I think defensively, he was pretty sharp. Offensively, he was bad. I don't know what he ended up with. I think he was like 11 and 16 rebounds. But he was like 0 for 6 for a long stretch of the game. And I do wonder if he might be a little bit past his prime. And I wonder if there might be a little bit of, do we play Trey Lyles? Do we play Paul Millsap? But overall, I thought they had a little bit more than what they had last year to push them over late in the game. Like the Clippers hung in there, and I thought they looked better than the Nuggets at times. But then all of a sudden, Jokic kind of made the right plays. They executed down the stretch, and they got that win, which, as we've been saying this whole preseason, is going to be big for the West, simply because, like, how many games are going to separate 3 from 8?
What's fascinating is we've seen so much turmoil with so many teams and so many suggestions of, you know, player movement and are they in the market for this guy? Are they going to have to sell off this guy? This has been a real summer and fall of stability for the Nuggets.
Yeah.
They lock up Jokic. They like kind of center in around him being their franchise player, although I think there's an argument that they're going to need an alpha scorer to go along with him. Maybe Jamal Murray becomes that. Maybe Gary Harris takes a leap. But also settling on Mike Malone and just being like, this is who we are. And, you know, we can kind of take it from there. I think that they just look very, very, very capable right now, which is like admirable in the West.
Yeah, and there's definitely a contrast with the Clippers, who are still kind of trying to finding out who they are, and they're playing matchups, which I think is to their advantage for the most part, simply because a lot of their guys are solid enough and are veteran enough where they could just play the hot hand, and I think all of it sort of works. Whereas the Nuggets know who they are already. They figured that out last season. Millsap, for what they're trying to do, fits that starting lineup. Some of their bench guys are a little iffy, but overall, I think they have enough to make the playoffs.
How did SGA look? Because we're talking a little bit about rookies today.
He was, I think the play that really characterized his whole night was he made an early turnover, like a pretty silly turnover, like it's just a bad pass. And I was like, what are you thinking? And then on the other end, they tried to run him around screens. I think he was guarding Murray or maybe it was Harris. He stuck with him the entire time, and his arms were so long that he jostled the ball away.
Interesting.
So I just think he can match with any of those other guards in that backcourt, and I think he's going to be really good.
It's interesting that he can't. So he was off the bench, but he ended up playing a good 28 minutes. So it seems like they really want to get him in there and get him some time.
You've been going to Clippers games for a long time. What was the vibe there now that we've like,
Clippers legend.
not only that we've fully like eradicated Lob City, but that it's like they have now kind of like taken this step back in the spotlight now that LeBron is there. Was there a different vibe in the building than you were used to? Or
yeah, I remarked to someone on press row during the game. I was like, I'm glad Blake Griffin isn't here. Just because I'm just so sick of, well, maybe because I had seen him for so long. So I was a little just bored with the whole thing, but also like the whole preening and the trying to get foul calls and trying to do that up and under move against the big. It was just over with it. And everything seemed really fun. Like Tobias Harris is fun. like Boban is fun. Like
Boban with 18 last night.
He was incredible. I think he's like killer. He might be their best center, which is incredible.
Wow.
But everything, there's just like a lighter atmosphere.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they're crushed by the weight of like getting a star or whoever. It's just like all these guys seem to get along. They play hard, and I think that's something that they can build upon going forward.
Yeah, I don't mean this in like a negative way at all, but they are like a great street ball team. You know what I mean? Like these five, I mean, not five, more than 5 guys, but this like group of guys who come together every Friday night after they get off work, and they know each other really well, and they're like, you're solid at this, you're solid at this.
Yeah.
And actually, like, the Clippers are going to be fun. They're going to be more fun than they have been in like 3 seasons.
There's too much experience there for them not to be in and around that 8-7 seed.
Well, and their experienced players are like really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like Patrick Beverly, Lou Williams. Like, I love watching all
If
of
they
those
stay
guys.
healthy, they're very threatening.
Yeah.
Lou was taking Steph Curry threes, by
Yeah.
the way. He took at least 2 from way out there, which is great.
There was some really galling. The Nuggets Clippers game was relatively conservative based on like some of these other score lines last night. Like even this Jazz Kings game where it was 123-117. You just don't really. we're really going to get into these 120, 130 games like right
Take
away.
the over.
The end of defense.
I'm looking forward to the pace and space Jazz.
That's right. So did you get a chance to see any highlights for that? Donovan wound up with 24 points, 3 for 10 from 3. So, not like anything huge from behind the arc, but it was like for a team that everybody is very high on, they looked pretty friggin' good.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that one. I think it showed that the Jazz aren't what we all expect them to be. Like, I think everyone says they're a defensive team that's going to plod and they're going to play through Rudy Gobert. But if anything, I think they're among the more versatile teams in the NBA right now, considering like just their wealth of wing players. Like the jokes were that Jay Crowder was like this bad player who can't shoot and all this other stuff. He was overrated. But I think like now he is properly rated as a type of guy who could play a little bit of stretch 4 and like open up things for you on that end. And then like Exum, he's a guy that they got nothing from last year. He's out there playing 26 minutes, 4 for 9. Like these guys all matter. And I think they can match up with most teams in the league now.
Crowder's in the same boat as Randall, where like for so long his stock was like waving up and down. Nobody really knew what to make of him on the teams they were on. And now it's like they're in a position to show that this is what I do. This is what I do well.
There's a piece this morning on Yahoo Sports where I guess it's like an interview with Donovan Mitchell, and he says the goal is the championship, and I got to get my assists up. So those are his 2 goals this year, apparently.
Sure.
There you go. Okay.
Is the goal ever not a championship?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And
It's
is
like,
the assists for like some sort of like I'm going to hit some contractual trigger?
we
And
should
like,
probably look into that.
He only had 2 assists last night. So.
Well, he said that after the game, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like it. There you go.
Just a guy who wants to improve.
Oh, here's the thing that
Just
you
wants to
missed
do whatever
that's pretty
for his
important. We were talking about NBA Jam teams of different college programs for NBA. Like, so if they were in there, and I was asking Haley, what?
When were
2-on-2?
did I black out during that? When
no,
did
Drummond,
2-on-2.
Kemba,
Oh, right.
Mitchell,
Oh, right.
Harrell.
Haley
right.
thinks that Donovan Mitchell and Montrezl Harrell could beat Kemba and Drummond in 2-on-2.
Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, you said Kemba?
Kemba's incredible.
I thought you said Monk.
No,
Or not Monk.
UConn versus Louisville.
What's his face?
UConn.
Lamb.
No.
That would be Lamb and Drummond versus Harrell and Mitchell.
Why are you saying that like it's a question?
It would be a fascinating duel.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. If it was Kemba, I would take UConn.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Champions,
Meanwhile,
baby.
I've got DeMar and Nikola Vucevic from USC.
There you go.
There you go.
Play through the post.
Emerson does not have any NBA.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
So I wanted to talk a little bit about this Sixers thing. I don't know if you guys have ever watched the American sitcom How I Met Your Mother. Very good episode they had once called Spoiler Alert, where basically 2 characters are sitting around, they're talking about people in their lives, and one guy is like,
Spoiler alert, this is your mom.
no, I think you would actually like How I Met Your Mother.
I've seen a couple episodes.
Okay, cool. There is like basically this moment where he's like, hey, I was like, your wife chews really loud. And the guy's like, my wife doesn't chew really loud. And he's like, yeah, she does. How can you not have noticed this? And then he thinks back, and then all of a sudden he can't not hear how loud his wife chews, and it's like driving him nuts. And this kind of happened to me this week, but not with my wife, with the Sixers. I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, The Rights to Ricky Sanchez, which is a Sixer podcast. And
Also a cult.
What with Mike Levin and Spike Eskin, and they were talking. They've been, I would say, on the darker side of optimism this week.
Sure, yeah,
And they were, mostly it's been Fultz talk, but after the Celtics game, they just were like, I'm kind of worried that Simmons and Embiid can't play with each other. That the perfect version of this team is Simmons and shooters or Embiid and shooters, and not Simmons and Embiid and Fultz all out of this floor at the same time, with especially those 3, but even Simmons and Embiid kind of not making a lot of sense, at least against a team as good as Boston is defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so maybe against, your Kings or your Hornets or whatever, you can get off with those guys, but that there is like a kind of basketball geography that's being broken when the 2 of those guys are out there, and it kind of shattered this dream I have of Joel and Ben leading the Sixers down Broad Street for an NBA title parade. And I was wondering if you guys ever have one of those moments where you realize something about a team that you might like a lot, and it just like shatters it for you.
Well, can we talk about the Sixers thing?
Yeah.
Sure.
Quickly?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that they definitely have a point.
Haley, did you not understand spoiler alert and you thought it was?
I got that wrong. I prepared something different.
Can we hear that one too?
That was dope. That was amazing. I was like, oh, Haley's got one, and then she's just like,
I was like, don't pass me the ball. Don't pass me the ball.
Go ahead, ask me about the Sixers. I love it. This is my favorite pastime.
I feel like they have a point that they're two big men, two of whom aren't really good shooters, one of whom isn't a shooter at all. Fultz also doesn't seem like he makes a ton of sense if he can't shoot there. But I feel like throughout recent history, we've done this a lot. And ultimately, it hasn't been that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chris Paul and James Harden, are there enough shots? There's only one ball to go around. Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and so on. I do feel like really good players figure it out. But I do think their issue is the guys around them. Like they need 3-point shooters to go with them, and they need a deeper bench. So I would just tweak it slightly to say it's not a Ben and Embiid problem.
I agree with you.
Okay.
So then doesn't that suggest something even deeper wrong with them? Like if they can't figure it out and if they don't want to figure it out together, isn't that also a problem? Because look, I think Embiid is an incredible, in Bull Durham, they would have called him an incredible flake. Like he has like an incredible personality. Yeah. He's got something that is, you can't teach that. And Simmons, I think, is the best basketball player I've ever seen in my life.
So which way would you go then?
Yeah. But this is the thing, is that the Philadelphia folklore guy wants Embiid. Sure. And then the guy who's like, I know what this team needs, and I've never seen someone pass the ball like Ben Simmons before. It's like Jason Kidd in Kevin Garnett's body or something. Then I'm split a little bit there.
Mm-hmm. Which one is the most talented on the team, and which one has the most God-given talent?
Well done.
To quote Jimmy Butler.
I don't know. It's just a really tough situation. I think that I admire what they're trying to do, which is that they know that the best version of this team, this is something that Spike and Mike talk about a lot, the best version of this team is the three of them. It's Ben, Joel, and Markelle, and that's why Markelle has to start. I don't understand the Milwaukee Brewers pitching staff style substitution pattern that's happening now, where Markelle plays like 24 minutes in the first half and then gets benched. Like that doesn't really make any sense to me. If you're trying to see what you can get out of him, don't you want to see him in a bunch of different game situations?
Don't you just think that's like a confidence thing? Like, hey, we're going to give this to you, but we're also going to win.
But I think
that doesn't make any sense. Then bring him off the bench and like play him like a normal 18 to 25 minute game.
I think that after last year, giving him confidence is like, oh, we're going to like give you the start. Like this, go ahead. But like, we still see that like, we're going to bring you along slowly. That's probably what they're telling him. You're not going to be confident if you're coming off the bench. But
I think that's part of the problem that Chris is sort of talking about, is they're trying to juggle so many things at once that it is hurting them. Like they're trying to juggle working Simmons and Embiid together as like a pairing. Then they're trying to juggle Markelle's confidence and his playing time and his shot and all of that. And then also the players around them to try to put together a team that can live up to its potential.
There's a couple of things. They got back from China. They're probably still a little tired. They didn't have Muscala or Chandler, so they didn't have the bench scoring or like the veteran scoring that they had last year with Bellinelli and Ilyasova. They played against probably the second best team in basketball on opening night. That's one other thing. Boston looked like completely ferocious to the point where Kyrie Irving looked like the fourth or fifth best player on that team. Mm-hmm. There was a bunch of reasons why they didn't look right against Boston in Boston, with Boston having all these expectations and Tatum going through Kobe finishing school and everything else. But there was still some concerns there that I think are going to kind of linger over the team. And the expectations are strange. This is a team that people want to see get to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they can't do it really unless they get what they can out of Fultz. And the only way to do that is to play him. But this weird, but in the second half, JJ is going to come in and will be a real basketball team is I've never seen that work before.
If you take away 98.7% of the talent, this is exactly what the Kings were doing last year.
Oh my God, Haley.
That's brutal.
I'm serious
because
they changed the lineup so many times because they were never sure what they were addressing.
Are we gonna do
were they
Fox
trying to win?
Guys,
were they trying to grow? Were they trying to do it at the same time? You can't halfway develop a player.
Well, this is the theme of the podcast then, is like these teams that are actually doing the thing that the other team wants to do,
I would just only say that there's a clear purpose with what they're trying to do with Fultz. They're trying to get him back into the groove in the context of their best players. And because going forward, they need those three guys to work. Right. So it's like, let's just figure it out now rather than wait about it.
What sucks is that, like, this is the situation that Fultz is in, needing to get his confidence back and all of that. He's also, at the same time, the key question for the Sixers to succeed this season. Like, his how he succeeds, and so it's like a lot of pressure on a guy who probably needs more time to like get that confidence.
Yeah, and it's also the specific nature of what's wrong, whatever is ailing him. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't actually really understand it or know how to talk about it, which I think is interesting. And this isn't Malik Monk. This isn't like, oh, this guy just didn't have a good rookie season and then he came out and just dropped 18 on the Bucks. Like,
well, I think that we should even just listen to the language we're saying. You're saying, Justin, get his groove back. You're saying get back to where he was or whatever. But where was he? He hasn't done anything
college.
yet.
College, yeah.
What we saw in college, which made him unquestionably the number one pick.
That's, you can't rely on that. Like, really, that's what we've seen Embiid come back from injury. We've seen Simmons come back from injury and be exactly what we thought that they were. I don't necessarily know that that's going to happen.
Those were feet and back.
Yeah.
That's not confidence. It wasn't confidence. It was like it wasn't a guy who's got a wide open 3-pointer and is playing a hybrid guard role in the NBA and it's like, I'm not going to take that shot.
So what are you
99 out of 100 guards take that shot.
Would you rather have Fultz come off the bench or would you rather have him start?
I'd rather have him come off the bench. I don't think there's anything wrong with him being in the second unit, getting a little bit less intense competition, although against the Celtics, he would still be going up against Marcus Smart, so it doesn't really matter. And Marcus Smart, like, picks his teeth with guys like Markelle Fultz's bones. You know what I mean? Like, that he feasts on being like, you were the number one pick, I'm going to destroy you. You know, like,
takes a lot of the pressure off of him.
Yeah, but just playing second unit, like, his job is to not throw away a lead or to keep the Sixers in a game, but not to win it and not, I think that some sort of like gradual incline, and then as soon as, there will be injuries, there will be like JJ misses 2 weeks of the hamstring pull, then he starts. It seems natural. It seems much more. And I think a lot of the declarative nature of the way they're handling it, where it's like, he has to play because we need to get him back to where he was. That you don't have to say that.
Well, a lot of rookies never get back to where they were in college either. But that's just not an option for him.
I'll just say, I don't know like what the best approach is with Fultz, but they need to figure him out because either to trade him or for him to be a part of the big three, he is the key piece.
So let me ask you guys this as more neutral observers. And I'm just curious. The Sixers, they've stated before, Elton Brand has talked about how the window in a lot of ways is Ben Simmons' rookie contract because that's the place where they, in terms of adding another star. So Fultz is, along with Covington and Sarge, the probably hottest asset that we would conceivably trade because we're not going to trade Simmons or Embiid. When you see Fultz play against Boston like that, how badly do you think it dings his trade value?
I would imagine that a lot of people are waiting to see what he actually is. And if anything, I think a game like that probably diminished it. And like I don't know, there isn't going to be a trade between now and their next game, which is tonight. So,
but what if he scores what if he puts up like 19 and 6 against the Bulls?
Then I'd be a little bit more intrigued.
Yeah. I think something that we discount a lot is that, especially for way younger guys who just got in the league a year ago, the scouts that were heavily scouting him before on teams that made the case for him, but maybe knew that they couldn't get him or a little bit lower, they still believe that he can be whatever they thought he could be. It's only been a year. And maybe they thought that his injury was handled wrong. Maybe they thought that they're not using him right. But this happens all the time that we are like, okay, well, this is his trade value, blah, blah, blah. But we weren't the ones that were scouting him for months that believed in him in this specific system.
I will say that probably on every trade call that they're going to field, they'll hear that Markelle is nothing. Like, because the whole point of a trade call is to diminish everything that guy will or has ever done.
Sure, but I'm sure there are still teams that want him and think that they could make a lot more out of him.
Well, what's fair value now? I don't know. Let me throw this hypothetical out.
You have to find a team that's like, you have to basically find a Portland who have decided that they're going to blow it up. You have to find a team that's got like CJ and Dame, we can't play them both together. So we're going to trade CJ and get off his contract and get a number one pick back and whatever else we can get from the Sixers.
That sounds like the worst idea
for Fultz or for the Sixers?
for the
Blazers.
For the Blazers.
Of course. Yeah. I'm constructing an idea
you need a more desperate team than that.
Yeah.
What about this? So things don't go well for the Pelicans this year. They have to trade Anthony Davis, or they decide to trade him before like all the packages become nothing this summer. would you trade for Davis, Embiid, and Fultz?
I can't believe you're taking this long.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I think so too.
Oh my God.
Well, even like a shorter term thing. What if like, so I know that like even on the Ricky, they've talked about like they don't want Jimmy Butler. Like Jimmy Butler is probably not like the guy.
Well, you can't have Jimmy Butler and Markelle Fultz in the same locker room. I mean, that's like.
Yeah, no. So, but like.
So if we're going to get Jimmy Butler, it has to be because they traded Markelle Fultz for him. I mean, like. That's what I mean. That's what I'm asking. Like, what if. Like, are you entertaining that more? Because no, I don't want to pay Jimmy Butler $40 million when he's 34.
Wow, that would make the Timberwolves like the team of the maybes. Like maybe Wiggins will pan out, maybe Cal will pan out.
Maybe Fultz, yeah.
Team clutch.
I mean, you would
sports,
have to throw
that's all I'm
something else, obviously.
Is that what is that your vision?
That's my vision.
We can wrap it up there. I'm depressed. For Haley O'Shaughnessy, Justin Verrier, and Paolo Uggetti, I'm Chris Ryan. Thanks for listening to Group Chat. We'll be back next week.
Basketball is very good. Basketball is very good.